1,000 miles always begins with a single step. The government of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan has so far taken Nigeria from a paltry 2,000-some megawatts of available power to where we have over 4,000 megawatts now, and within a year we'll be hitting 10,000 megawatts. The government has actually done a lot. The government is also looking at the dilapidated structure of transmission to ensure that the power that is generated is eventually wheeled out. And herein comes the opportunity. I do not think that the companies who have won the bids, preferred bidders, for the Gencos and for the Discos, have all the capital in the world they need to develop and improve on what they have bought or what's been handed over to them. That is why I strongly believe that they will eventually go to the stock market. That's where your association is going to do a lot of work. Encourage Nigerians to realize the importance of getting to the stock market for financing such projects, giving opportunity to as many Nigerians as possible to own shares in all of these companies. I do hope that you will aggressively pursue that, because that's really the right thing to do. There is no point asking international investors to come and then get everything and then reap all the profits, smile all the way to the bank, or even dance all the way to the bank, but have Nigerians as well at all estates, the small and the medium, the rich and the poor, all involved in the ownership of this emerging revolution in the power sector. I believe that it is critical for you to realize that you really stand at the threshold of history with regard to a massive power sector revolution. We have made great strides so far and have recorded major successes in the achievement of the power reform to date. This includes the reconstitution of the board of the National Electricity Regulatory Commission. Hence, the regulator has become more responsive to the demands of the emerging market. Next, the reconstituted NERC has commenced the implementation of the new cost-reflective multi-year tariff order called MITO 2. Next, in line with the power reform roadmap, the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company, alias Bulk Trader, who has the mandate to purchase bulk electricity from generation companies and the Nigerian Electricity Liability Management Company Limited, NEMCO, have been incorporated and are now fully operational. I think it's critical to realize this. Anybody coming so far to buy into already existing power projects, whether it's NIPP or to establish IPPs, there is a comfort zone. And that zone is open to everyone today. That you can get power purchase agreement from the NBET. This power purchase agreement is backed up by partial risk guarantees, which ensures you that if you invested in generating electricity in Nigeria, whatever you generate will be bought. Is there a better business than that anywhere? Somebody tells you ahead of time that whatever you bring to the market will be bought at good price to accommodate your profit. I think it's an invitation to all the world to come and do something in this sector. A management contract is now in place for the Transmission Company of Nigeria to bring global best practices in the expansion and transmission of our grid. The TCN board has been the bottleneck in the entire value chain of power delivery in Nigeria lies in the transmission sector. And that is why we are expecting and hoping for massive investment, not only by government, because government actually is holding on to transmission until the infrastructure is strong and robust enough, and government will eventually divest. But meanwhile, we are working on a program to ensure that private people who invest in transmission will recoup their investment with time by including a transmission component in the tariff that will eventually be charged. So we are getting there. The preferred bidders of the 10 GENCOs and 5 DISCOs have paid the initial 25% of the bid prices, and the balance of 75% is to be paid after the settlement of labor issues. It is expected that over time, the new successor companies will be listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. This is very critical, and this will also enhance their capacity to continue to grow. Despite the veil of cynicism and pessimism which prowls our public opinion cycle, as of December 2012, installed available generation capacity had risen to over 9,000 megawatts, while available generation capability has increased to 6,522 megawatts. The peak available power increased to 4,517 megawatts in December and 4,518 megawatts in April this year. We expect to add additional generation capacity of about 4,773 megawatts from the NIPP project, and many of them are listed here. We also are expecting that hydropower will become very prominent also. Quite recently, the President flagged off the Zungeru hydropower project, which will add another 700 megawatts to the grid. And hopefully before the end of this year, our President will also flag off the Mambila 3,050 megawatts of hydropower plant, and that will hopefully be done before the end of the year. There are other hydropower plants that are also there, and many of these will be giving out for concession. At this juncture, permit me to shed some light on some labor-related issues in the power industry. At the inception of the unbundling of the PACN, one major issue that immediately became apparent was the resolution of payment of PACN workers and severance benefits of these workers. We have great correspondence with the union leaders. We've been talking and working amicably. It has been a very thorny path, very, very thorny, much more thorny than you could imagine, but eventually we kept working with them to a point that we brought everybody on the same page. And so the union issues are substantially resolved. We have also verified over 44,000 workers. We have all the biometrics on them, and we are ready to commence payment of these workers. As of today, it is expected that all outstanding payments will be made by the end of July or sometime in August. Let me, however, clarify that government is not laying off PACN workers, but rather workers are being severed from public service employment to enable them migrate to the private sector-driven employment and thereby becoming part of the new sector. Think about the scenario we have now. Most of these workers that are professionals, technicians, technologies, and especially, of course, engineers, will be looked for by the companies that bought them, the owners of the companies that bought up all these assets. But there is a problem somewhere that many people don't even understand. All the 10 NIPP projects that are open for divestments, whose divestments have already started, do not have staff. You can imagine the thousands of staff that will eventually be consumed by these companies. So those in the electricity market at the moment, who are now eventually being paid off, will have work. In fact, many of them, I think, will probably resign, from even the companies that want to retain them, to form consultancy firms. Because we still need to develop and build the critical mass of engineers and technical people needed to move the power sector to the next level. And that is why the National Power Training Institute, NAPTIN, is doing a good job right now, beginning to prepare the people that will drive this private-driven electricity market. So, we are not sacking anybody. All we are saying is, hey, you've done your wonderful job for the country as a public servant. Now go to the private sector, because we believe the private sector will manage this much better than government. I also would like to add that let me highlight some other issues in the new and emerging power market. Presently, the sector is generating approximately 4,000 megawatts, and the plan is to generate by Vision 2020 Dream 40,000 megawatts. If you think about that, you see the massive opportunity that is there in the power sector for investors. A plethora of investments in the following areas must be made to achieve that dream. Even if it were just 20,000, but we are talking of 40,000 megawatts. We need investment in the new independent power projects. I believe that those preferred bidders will come to the stock market to source for funds for better capacity to deliver power to the people. Then we need investment in renewable energy. If you have this paper, please note that coal is not a renewable energy. It's an energy, it's a form, a fossil fuel that will eventually dissipate. But we have biomass, we have solar, we have wind, and all this can be invested. And let me tell you too that although people say it costs much more to have solar power, wind power, initial capital, but in the long run, these things are renewable because the fuel you use is already given in nature. Wind is natural, sunlight is natural, biomass is natural, and so many things like that. But there is also a different tariff. So if you generate power by solar and wind, you will be paid more than those who generate by gas. And we also are talking very seriously. In fact, in this visit to China that Mr. President is undertaking within the next couple of days, some of what those of us who are foot soldiers of the President will be talking about with the Chinese include coal to power. So you can see there is an array of opportunities out there. We also need investment in metering plants, investment in capacity training outfits, investment in gas infrastructure, gas pipeline, and other gas gathering projects, investment in other technologies that will conserve energy, investment in transmission grid. Very critical. And in fact, we can talk all the megawatts we want in the world. If our transmission is not developed, strengthened, and expanded, we cannot wheel the energy out. That is the immediate focus that we have right now. Other service industries of the power sector also need investment. And then, as a matter of fact, the power sector will now become the largest sector in Nigeria with an increased rate of return on investment. Recently, as I said, Mr. President flagged off Zungeru, and very soon the same thing will happen with Mambila. So, as we transit from government-controlled, vertically inclined monopoly of private sector-led structured market, roles are being defined to suit the emerging scenario. The Electric Power Sector Reform Act spells out clearly the roles of the market participants, including the regulator, which we continue to strengthen, NERC, and the Federal Ministry of Power, which will now concern itself with more in the areas of policy development and policy implementation. The Federal Ministry of Power is already in the process of self-reform to equip itself with the right competitiveness and capabilities to handle policy issues, as well as ensuring a conducive environment for investments in the power sector. And in conclusion, it is important to note that the whole world is watching Nigeria because of our population and the investment opportunities that are there. I don't think any country has actually embarked on such a massive project of almost completely privatizing the power sector in one fell swoop. So many do it gradually. So this is a massive thing happening in Nigeria, and those who jump on the bandwagon now are most likely to benefit more from this. A country that is highly endowed with abundant water resources, solar resources, wind resources, gas reserves, Nigeria is ready for investors. The ministry is ready to partner with potential investors in achieving the targets of the sector. The task of repositioning our robust power sector is a collective effort, not only by government, but also by the private sector. Gladly, the power sector has always shown the capacity to be a driver of growth. You can think of what will happen to our economy if we have power supply 24/7. The industries will wake up. More industries will be established. Manufacturing outfits will spread all over the place. Young men and women who establish small businesses, whether it is for artisan practices and so on, will have power. They won't need to depend on generators. They will now have power that is much less expensive to run their business. And many of the applicants who are roaming the streets today will probably have one or more opportunities to get into the job market and win. We have seen the gallantry, resilience, and innovativeness and the great acumen of the private sector in other aspects of our national economy. We have achieved this in the banking sector, telecommunications sector, and we will also achieve it in the power sector beyond expectations. Gladly, the government is robust, proactive, and remains undaunted. I've said that this privatization venture has gathered so much momentum, and it is irreversible. We will get there. The train is on the move, and the train will get there. It is a journey that has taken us forward and will unleash our country into its golden era of growth and progress. Welcome, and God bless.